Hey guys, Sean here. So, just real quick about the Great Pyramids. There's a lot I could say about the Great Pyramids, and I've identified in some of my other videos some of the changes that have occurred from my perspective of reality, from what I remember the pyramids being like to what they are now. But that's not really what I'm looking to get into. What I'd like to reference is a very obvious piece of evidence that shows that indeed before the flood, the great flood that occurred at some point in our past, wiped out most civilization, most traces of civilization. That we used to have a more advanced civilization with a lot of knowledge and technology prior to the Great Flood destroying almost all of it on the entire planet. You can go look at pretty much any culture's records, hand me down stories, and there is reference to this global event. It did occur. Exactly when, that's open for debate. Exactly how long it lasted, and that's open for debate. How it actually happened, I don't think anyone knows how it actually happened. People have their ideas, but how this water, it was a water event, we know that, and it killed almost everybody in the world. We pretty much know that. But the dynamics, the specifics, the details of how this event actually occurred, there's a lot of different accounts out there, a lot of different versions of the story. The Noah's Ark story in the Bible is one of the more famous ones, but there's lots and lots and lots of accounts of this incredibly huge worldwide event. Anyway, so how can you see this very obvious evidence that we used to have a high level of sophistication and knowledge and technology prior to the flood, and then after the flood occurred, we took a step backwards? Well, the Great Pyramid. Think about it in Giza. These giant, there's three of them, and they're huge, and they're relatively well preserved for their age. Regardless, and again, their age, again, that's open for debate too. But the fact is that the consensus is that those Great Pyramids in Giza, the three of them, are older, and that there are newer pyramids that were built after those in Egypt, in that land, but the ones that were built more recently are far more crumbled, are far more deteriorated than the three older ones. So how is it that those pyramids, the three in Giza, are more well preserved, quite dramatically more well preserved than ones that came after? Well, it seems obvious to me that after the flood, we built. This is assuming these pyramids were built after the flood. So if these pyramids were built after the flood, the survivors of that older time period still possessed knowledge of the old ways and still had ways of building architecturally things based on the old knowledge before the flood. And the Great Pyramids in Giza were constructed. And then as the centuries went on, that information, that knowledge, that know-how was disintegrating. It was being forgotten. It was going away. And we were actually kind of moving backwards in a way. But right after the flood, the survivors were part of that. Either them or their parents or their grandparents were part of that older way where there was a lot of knowledge that was mostly forgotten after the flood. So they, over time, forgot those things. And the pyramids that were built, the newer pyramids, the pyramids that were built after those great pyramids, are nowadays in our world are almost completely crumbled. So the older of the pyramids is the best preserved. Something to think about.